Well, the issue that I think all private practice owners deal with is their focus is mostly on doing dentistry. I mean, that's what we go to school for, is focusing on how to become better clinicians, and that's what our continuing education is doing for us. So a lot of our energies are focused on that. What they don't prepare you for is the practice management aspect of it. So that's where I found early on in opening my private practice. So I was about 5 years into it. So 2013 is when we started. And as the practice slowly grew, the dentistry was fine, but I found that the busier I became, the less control I had over the office. So I knew that there was an issue that I wasn't directly addressing, but needed to be addressed if I wanted to, I guess, meet the demands that dentistry was giving me from my patients and from my growing family. And also that need for organization that is vital for any business to succeed in. And I think that being in that mindset, Silkin kind of approached this office with a phone call, and it was just a kind of a complimentary consult over the phone, a practice analysis, I believe is what they called it, and it brought to light the issues that I knew were there. And it was very telling because at the end of the conversation, many conversations that they had in order to just kind of dig into each aspect of the practice and kind of see how it was running, if it was running efficiently, and what they could do to help me with it, was to notice that if there was something that I wanted to do well, that I couldn't do it on my own. Dentistry, I can do that on my own. I think that's what we're trained for. That's what dental school is for. You don't have somebody right next to you holding your hand throughout your entire career. It's that's what they call a soul practice. But running a business was a different beast. And I had a father that I worked alongside and have seen him, I'm not gonna say struggle, but I can definitely see the ups and downs that he went through in practice ownership. And he was successful, but it took a lot of energy. And I chose early on to work smarter instead of harder. And that didn't sit well with him at first, because he just figured that was something that he had done, and that's what I was forced to do, was work harder. That's how you become more successful, is putting in more hours, doing the things that other people aren't doing, and trying to separate yourself from the crowd. So that's how it started. Well, one of the things that we first started looking at when I dug into the practice and kind of the bones of it is, what are the systems, if any, or policies and protocols that I have to put in place so that should something happen to me, or should we expand at a rapid pace, which was happening towards the 3, 4, 5 year mark, as things started picking up speed, as some of my advertising and promotionary venues started providing fruit to the practice, was how do I manage all that? How do I not lose that opportunity of hard-earned patients coming into the practice and losing them through the cracks? And so tightening everything up with policy was something that I realized early on that was going to be essential, not only for me to grow the practice, but for me to have that sense of security that I could, for lack of a better word, be replaced, or at least be emulated, in the sense of all of my energies that I put in the practice would prove to be fruitful, and in turn turn a profit for me passively. I think that's where it came to, because there's only so many hours in the day. That's where I soon found myself working, 55, 65, 70 hours a week, and really taking into consideration what I was producing versus the time that I was putting in place, and then saying, well, how much of that time is actually doing dentistry, and how much of that time is, I'm not gonna say wasted, but was just spent scrambling around, putting out fires and trying to piecemeal policy together just to keep the boat afloat. And that's where I realized that there was this kind of aha moment where there were things that were outside my control, or if I decided to pursue it myself, would require a tremendous amount of effort and time to do on my own, time that I didn't have because I needed to be spent at chairside doing dentistry. So that's where we were at with that. So Silkin came into the picture, and they showed me areas that they can help me implement processes, protocol, much faster than it would have taken for me to do it on my own. And I think that when that happened, and once I took that step and decided to have them come alongside me and kind of feed me that information and train me on how to implement that, the process became a lot faster. It seemed like the distance between a problem and a solution shortened up. And it allowed me to, one, move through problems much more effectively, but two, and most importantly, it allowed me to place that responsibility and give me the confidence to delegate it to people, knowing full well that I had given them the tools necessary to get the job done. And that's where the light bulb turned on, because what I was doing in the past was doing that same thing, giving them a responsibility, but there was no plan. There was no strategy. There was no policies or protocols for them to follow suit in. And what ended up happening is they would stumble, they would trip up, they would get locked up on a problem, and then they'd come right back to me, which just doubled my efforts and the amount of time that I had to give to the same problem, instead of them taking some ownership on it, using the tools that I'd given them, and then in proper delegation form, getting the job done themselves, which is what a leader should do, right? You have a problem, I tell you how to fix it, you go do it. And that's what I'm finding myself being able to do more effectively. If somebody approached me about, the services that Silkin offers, I think that the first thing that I tell them is, you spent all this time perfecting your craft as a clinician. Have you spent the same amount of time or energy perfecting your craft as a business owner? If you haven't, then sadly, you're not doing yourself justice, and you're not really seeing the total profit involved in the efforts that you've put into your education and your training. That's what got me. That's what was something that I had to really look in the mirror and say, listen, if my responsibility is to do dentistry to the best of my ability, and this whole, elephant in the room of business ownership is sitting there staring at me, expecting my attention, and I just continue to ignore it, I'm not doing what I need to do for my patients. And they're not getting the service that they require and that they deserve. As Silkin approached me with these answers to these problems that I had, and if providers find themselves in that same situation where they need to bolster their efforts in business management, that's what Silkin was able to do for me. They came alongside me, they gave me the tools that I needed, and because of it, I'm more effective, and my practice is growing, which is fantastic. We've seen, in the last 8 months of work with them, we've seen a 35% increase in our revenue, and we expect more in the future, so I'm excited about it. Because the reality of the matter is if you have questions and doubts about the way that your office is running, it's important for you to at least pursue the opportunity to see what Silkin can do in regards to consulting and the tools that they have to help. I would advise to anybody that is running a private practice to absolutely pursue a consultation and at least get a practice analysis of how your practice is running now. You owe it to yourself to see if what you're doing is working and if there's something that they can do to help you.